Hi and welcome to our new video. This is the Cosori Dual Blaze TwinFry. We tested it for you and you'll find out everything you need to know in this video. So just stay tuned. So, before we get to the practical test, let's start with a quick overview. The Cosori comes with a power output of 2,800 watts and boasts an impressive 10-liter capacity. The big highlight is the large drawer, which we can use either as a so-called GrandZone or as a DualZone, with two cooking areas by using the basket divider. These compartments then feature the sync and match functions typical for Ninja. That means they can be synchronized if you're preparing different foods or matched if you want to cook the same in both compartments. The goal is for everything to finish at the same time, so you don't have to worry about anything getting cold. Similar to its sister model, the slightly smaller Cosori Dual Blaze, there is a bottom heating element under each cooking zone here as well. Basically, both are always on initially. They only switch off if you use the grill function, in which case the heat comes only from the top. Like many other air fryers, this device is operated via a touchscreen, which in this case is actually quite well done. Compared to many others, the pressure point of the controls feels pretty decent. Of course, the dimensions are also important. With a height and width of 31.5 by 51 centimeters and a depth of 33 centimeters, the TwinFry is definitely one of the larger models. You really have to clear some space for it. It helps, of course, that this air fryer has carrying handles, so you can move it around however suits you best. The cable is about 1 meter long, which is pretty standard for most air fryers, and we have a total of 4 non-slip feet installed, which is important so the device doesn't slide around when pulling the drawer in and out. As for accessories, there is of course the large basket and the divider to separate the cooking zones. Since there aren't separate baskets, you obviously can't take them out individually, which can be a bit cumbersome, but more on that in a moment. Additionally, there are 2 wire racks and, which we think is quite nice, silicone tongs to fish your food out of the pan. Plus, you can download the VSync app and connect it to the air fryer via Wi-Fi. That way, you can easily control it remotely. And you also have the option to pull a whole bunch of recipes from the app. By the way, if you're interested in the product, check out the description below the video. You can find all the links there. And otherwise, let's get to the main event, our practical test. Let's start here with the operation. The TwinFry generally has a temperature range of 35 to 240 degrees Celsius. However, this varies from program to program. For example, you only reach 35 degrees Celsius with the dry function and 240 degrees Celsius only with the grill setting. There are also different timers, which also depend on the selected program. Most programs offer a time setting of up to 60 minutes, or sometimes a few hours, but the dry program, for example, goes up to 48 hours. You can set the desired temperature in 5-degree increments and the timer in 1-minute increments. With the dry function, however, the time intervals are a bit larger. Generally, though, you can hold down the arrows to skip through and get to your target a bit faster. In total, there are 6 predefined programs: air fry, roast, bake, grill, reheat, and dry. You simply select the corresponding symbol and tap it. There is also a touchscreen element for the sync function, and one for the match function. Match copies the settings of the first chamber to the second. As mentioned, this is intended for identical foods. And with sync, the compartments are synchronized so that the dishes finish at the same time. This means the compartment with the shorter cooking time will initially stay on hold and basically wait for the other compartment. But of course, you can also adjust everything more individually and completely ignore these functions if you want to. As already mentioned, you also have the option to control everything remotely via the VSync app. Here, you can also choose between the 2 zones and the GrandZone and will be prompted accordingly to insert or remove the basket divider. You can also set presets, time, and temperature here, just like the sync and match functions. However, due to legal regulations, you still have to start it on the device itself. But you can see the cooking progress in the app again, so you can go back to relaxing on the sofa. The presets for certain foods, which you can select via a cooking chart, are also quite nice. You can send these directly to the air fryer. But best of all is that you can permanently adjust the preset values of the air fryer via the app. Over time, you figure out the perfect temperature and time settings for your favorite fries, and you can simply set that as a preset so you don't have to do anything on the air fryer itself. Just press the button and go. Additionally, the recipes in the app are integrated with the whole system, so only those that can actually be prepared with the TwinFry are displayed. If you select a recipe, you see all the ingredients and step-by-step instructions. The values for temperature and time are provided by the recipe and can be sent directly to the air fryer. Compared to Philips devices, there's a bit less selection here with Cosori, but it's still large enough to keep you busy for a while. So, enough chatter. We want to know what this thing can do. Off to our test kitchen. We'll start here with the classic fries. That's how you want them. Crispy on the outside, tender on the inside. That worked pretty well in the TwinFry. But as with all air fryers, the rule here is cooking them too long can dry out the fries, but if you pay attention to that from the start, it shouldn't be a problem. It's similar with the nuggets. The result here was also solid. If you want a bit of variety, you can also just throw potato wedges into the air fryer. They also get evenly crispy and stay fluffy on the inside. And they look pretty good too. For the breakfast crowd, we have some bake-at-home rolls as well, which many people prepare this way nowadays, and apparently with good reason, because these turned out wonderfully for us too. Just like with the potato products, we have a crispy crust and a soft interior here. Of course, chicken wings can't be missing. They were cooked beautifully evenly and looked top-notch, and taste-wise, there's nothing to complain about here either. After all the savory treats, something sweet is always a good idea. You can actually bake muffins quite well with a device like this. With the right settings, they turn out excellently, so they are firm on the outside, but not too crispy, and remain fluffy on the inside. As usual, you naturally have to shake the food in the TwinFry every now and then. With such a large cooking basket, that is of course more cumbersome than with a smaller one. Therefore, you should make sure not to grab the basket from the front to shake it, but from the side. That way, it actually works surprisingly well. In our opinion, Cosori implemented that quite well. Furthermore, the wire racks remained surprisingly stable during the shake test. We've seen that differently. They tend to come loose when shaking or dumping out, but here it worked quite well. With the basket divider, however, you have to be a little careful. It's not quite as secure. Another disadvantage of a single large pan with a basket divider is, of course, that you can't take the two compartments out individually to toss the food. After all, they are only created by the basket divider. So if we have fries on one side and nuggets on the other and want to give the fries a good shake, we shake the nuggets right along with them, and they can naturally lose some of their breading. So either you acquire artistic skills where you only shake one side, which is, of course, difficult to impossible, or you just turn the fries with a spoon and grab the included tongs for the nuggets. It's a bit more cumbersome than with other devices, but that's just how it is. Now we ask ourselves, of course, how well does the basket divider actually work? Should you use two smaller compartments or just go straight for the GrandZone? Well, we tried both, of course. Once a large amount in the GrandZone without the divider, and once with the two smaller compartments. Both worked well in our test and produced respectable results. You might think that the heat is distributed worse in the GrandZone, but honestly, there wasn't much sign of that. The fries got evenly crispy here too. The basket divider also cut a fine figure. We were worried beforehand that the heat might not be separated well, but that didn't turn out to be true either. At least for us, the results of the individual compartments were as they should be. Then, of course, the question remains about the bottom heating elements. Do they do anything? That is the big question. As we already saw with the Cosori Dual Blaze, the smaller model, the bottom heat actually has an effect here too. However, to be honest, it's somewhat limited. The cooking results are indeed a bit more even, and everything goes a tick faster. But it doesn't make a night and day difference, and accordingly, it shouldn't be seen as a decisive criteria. As for the volume, the device reaches around 60 decibels. Most air fryers are in this range, so from our point of view, that's fine. Regarding build quality, we have a good overall picture here. The panel gaps are only slightly problematic, just not quite fitting in a few places. The plastic used is a bit more bothersome there. There are one or two spots that come across as a bit wavy, and of course that doesn't look quite as nice. The display, on the other hand, is well integrated and looks high quality. Overall, from our perspective, the air fryer is built quite well. If you've been air frying all day long, you naturally have to take care of the cleaning at some point, and you want as much of that as possible taken off your hands. Fortunately, the pan and wire racks are dishwasher safe. The basket divider isn't explicitly mentioned for this, but we were brave anyway and just put it in the dishwasher. At least visibly, nothing seems to have happened to it. After the dishwasher cleaning, there were still slight residues to be seen on the basket divider, and there were also traces in the pan. By and large, though, if you compare it to other devices we've had here, it got sufficiently clean from our point of view. Let's get to the conclusion. The Cosori Dual Blaze TwinFry belongs to the mid to high price range, and in our opinion, it lives up to this classification in terms of performance. Yes, the GrandZone/DualZone thing brings a few disadvantages, such as not being able to toss food as easily as with air fryers with two drawers, but the rest was largely convincing. 10 liters provide plenty of room for lots of food. The flexibility through the Grand and DualZone system is great. The bottom heating elements help a bit with evenness and speed. The operation is good, and the handling overall is great too. And of course, the most important thing, the cooking results were good. We don't want to ignore the app function. It's cool that it exists, of course, and it might be important to some people. Bottom line, though, we'd like to cheekily dismiss that as a gimmick. The most important thing for us remains the core function and the promised flexibility through Grand and DualZone, and we think the device is really impressive in that regard. For families and for events, it's definitely worth a look. With that in mind, if you're interested in the product, check out the description below the video. We've linked it there for you. And if you're not sure at all which device is the right one for you, then take a look at this video right here. There, we compare different air fryers with each other, and we're sure that will help you find the right one.